My name is Natalie Blaine, and I'm 31 years old. For the past 2 years, I thought I was in a committed, steady, almost fated relationship with my 28-year-old boyfriend. We didn't live together, but we were serious enough that I'd begun imagining shared leases, maybe even a future proposal, something quiet and beautiful. But that version of my life began to unravel 6 weeks ago. It started slowly in ways that were almost too subtle to trust. My boyfriend had always been relaxed about his phone, left it on the couch, tossed it on the counter, handed it to me while we watched TikToks. Then one day I noticed something. A text came in. He glanced at it, and without a word, he angled the screen away from me. Not dramatically, not enough to draw attention, just a small shift. But small shifts are often the first signs of something bigger. Then the passwords changed. His phone, his laptop, even his smartwatch now required codes he refused to share. He'd say things like, I love you, but I need some privacy. It's healthy. Except it wasn't healthy because he'd never needed that privacy before. When he stepped out onto the balcony to answer a call one evening, closing the sliding door behind him, like an airtight seal, I felt something tighten in my chest. It wasn't one specific moment, it was the accumulation. Late-night messages he wouldn't let me see, calls he took in another room, sudden excuses, strange defensiveness, emotional acrobatics. Whenever I voiced concern gently, he flipped it back onto me with such practiced ease it made my stomach twist. Natalie, you're being insecure. Why would you assume the worst about me? This is exactly why I didn't want to bring it up. Your reactions. Each sentence threaded a quiet gaslight through my ribs. I knew the signs. Everyone does, even if they pretend they don't. But love is a powerful sedative. It makes you slow to react, hopeful, for too long, patient beyond reason. And I was patient, even when things escalated 3 weeks ago. He started having more client dinners. Not unusual, he worked in pharmaceutical sales, and client dinners were part of the job. But when those dinners began happening 3 or 4 times a week, always followed by him coming home late, hairstyled, freshly wearing his most expensive cologne, something inside me stirred. A whisper, a warning. I tried to keep things light, approaching it more as teasing than accusation. Wow, you've been networking like a CEO lately. He froze, as if the air around him solidified. Are you serious right now, Natalie? I'm working. This is my career. Why are you making me feel guilty for doing my job? That was the moment I learned he was going to weaponize the word trust. Every time I questioned anything gently, neutrally, even lovingly, he twisted it into an indictment of my character. 2 weeks later, it escalated again. He told me he had a business trip coming up. 3 days. Major clients. A pharmaceutical conference. Routine enough. But when I asked where he was vague, his tone too airy to be natural. Oh, just some convention center thing. Hotel boring panels. The usual. Which hotel, I asked. I want to send you something. Just a little good luck surprise. He hesitated. Just a fraction, but hesitation always matters. I'll text you the details later, babe. I'm running late. He never texted them. By then, the whisper in my chest had become a steady, insistent pulse. Then came Tuesday. The text that changed everything. It was 2:10 p.m., and I was at work reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. Pop quiz. Do you trust me? I stared at the screen, confused. Random question, LOL, what's up? Just answer, yes or no. Do you trust me? Completely. I didn't breathe for a moment. Innocent people don't test their partners out of nowhere. Guilty people gauge suspicion. This wasn't a test of trust. It was a test of whether he'd successfully hidden something. My reply was steady completely, and it was the first outright lie I'd told him in months. His response came instantly. Good. Just making sure. Sometimes I feel like you doubt me when I talk about work stuff. Wanted to hear you say it. Then he followed up business trip this weekend, BTW. Leaving Friday morning, back Sunday night. There it was. His alibi, crafted carefully, confirmed by the trust he believed he still had. I stared at that message for a long time. The hum of my office felt dim, muffled, like I'd stepped inside a bubble where reality paused. My hands trembled slightly, not from heartbreak, but from clarity. If someone needs to test your trust, it's because they know they're about to break it. During my lunch break, I Googled private investigators. That afternoon, I met with Detective D, a woman in her 50s, with the posture of someone who had seen much darker things than infidelity. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, grounded. I get cases like yours all the time, she said as she scanned my boyfriend's photo. Partner acting strange, secretive, sudden business trip. You're smart to follow your instincts. I slid my phone across the table, the messages open. I need to know what he's actually doing this weekend, and I need proof. Photo and video documentation, she said. GPS tracking if he's sloppy. I'll get you answers. But you need to be prepared for what I might find. I swallowed, quietly, firmly. At this point, not knowing is worse. She nodded once. Surveillance starts Friday morning. Those next 2 days felt like torture wrapped in pretense. I acted normal around him. I smiled, I laughed, I touched his arm, cooked him dinner, kissed him goodnight. He seemed lighter, oddly affectionate, like someone who was comforting his conscience before doing what he already planned. On Thursday night, he hugged me long at the door. "Miss you already, baby. You'll do great," I whispered. "Safe travels." But in my chest, something cold and sharp had taken root. Friday morning at 8:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Target departed residence at 8:15. I'm following. At 8:30, my boyfriend texted me at the airport. Wish me luck. At 9:03, Detective D sent the update that punched the air out of my lungs. He's not at any airport. He just checked into the Riverside Hotel downtown. Uploading photos now. And that was the moment I knew. The person I'd loved for 2 years was a stranger, and the truth was only just beginning. Friday afternoon felt strangely silent, as if the world had turned down its volume just enough for me to hear my own pulse. Detective D continued sending me updates, each one a fresh cut, small, precise, undeniable. At 11:23 a.m., she wrote, "Target left hotel in cocktail attire, following to upscale restaurant." A second later, I received a photo through the encrypted portal. There he was, my boyfriend, dressed impeccably, smiling in a way he hadn't smiled at me in months. Standing beside him was a woman in her mid-40s, elegant, confident, the kind of woman who looked like she closed deals before breakfast. Then another photo, the two of them greeting each other with an intimacy that cannot be mistaken. Her hand lingered too warmly on his shoulder. His fingers brushed her waist as though guided by memory, not courtesy. My phone buzzed again. 12:07 p.m. Target and female companion seated, holding hands across table, uploading photos. I opened them, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel my chest tighten. I felt it go numb. It wasn't simply cheating. It wasn't even secrecy. It was ease, familiarity. He wasn't anxious or guilty or conflicted. He was comfortable. At 1:45 p.m., another update came, returning to hotel. Same room as earlier. Confirmed. 10 minutes later, he texted me, "Conference sessions are so boring. Miss you already, Nat." I stared at the message, my expression so still that if someone walked past my desk, they might have thought I'd frozen in place. There is a particular kind of betrayal that doesn't feel like fire, it feels like ice. Slow, heavy, crushing from the inside out. The updates slowed for a while. At around 3:30 p.m., Detective D confirmed they were still in the room. I didn't want to imagine what that meant. I didn't need to. At 6:17 p.m., male companion departed. Target still in room. At 7:00 p.m., Target left hotel, new outfit, following. I wondered what he would lie about tonight. Maybe another client dinner. Maybe meeting with colleagues. Cheaters always recycle the same scripts, assuming no one's paying attention. By 8:04 p.m., the next message arrived, new woman. Younger. Approx 30-35. Very affectionate greeting. Uploading photos. Younger. Affectionate. Another woman entirely. I blinked once, twice, then leaned back in my chair. Something inside me shifted, not broken, not unraveling, but hardening. When I opened the photos and saw him embracing the second woman, holding her hands, with the same tenderness he'd once used with me, laughing with the same softness. That was the moment my heart detached. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't anger, it was clarity. He wasn't in a crisis or confused or tempted. He was running a well-oiled system. At 8:30 p.m., he texted me again. "Networking dinner with pharma reps. We'll call you later." He didn't call. Of course he didn't. At 10:45 p.m., Detective D updated me with clinical precision target and second female companion entered hotel together. New room. Same hotel, confirming both rooms. I no longer felt shocked. I felt strangely calm, like I'd stepped out of my own life and was simply observing it through thick glass. Saturday was a repetition almost to eerie perfection. Breakfast with the older woman. Afternoon shopping with the younger one. Late dinner with the older again. Private rooms. Patterned affection. Duplicated gestures. A rotating script of intimacy. It was choreography. Practiced, rehearsed, deliberate. Detective D's report delivered. Sunday morning was comprehensive enough to make even the dullest lawyer take notice. It detailed every movement, time-stamped every interaction, and captured the depth of both relationships with chilling objectivity. I read the report in full piece by piece. The older woman, successful, refined, generous, paid for everything. Meals, shopping bags, even the hotel suite. She called him baby multiple times in audio clips. The younger one, warm, cheerful, seemingly a hopeless romantic, gave him jewelry at dinner and paid for her own hotel room. He used the same tone of affection with them that he used with me, the same playful touches, the same let's get a few candid smiles for photos, the same looks that once made me believe I was special. By the time I finished the report, I realized something crucial. He wasn't slipping into dishonesty. He was living in it. This wasn't impulsive cheating. It was a system, a cycle, a lifestyle. One he'd perfected long before me. I spent the rest of Sunday sitting in my living room. The afternoon light filtered through the blinds in pale gold stripes. A mug of untouched tea cooled next to me. And in that stillness, as the weight of the truth settled into my bones, I understood that I didn't want to confront him privately. There was no conversation that would fix this. No explanation that would soften it. No apology that would matter. Because betrayal is not just what someone does, it's who they choose to be. And he had chosen this life long before he ever chose me. Around 5:00 p.m., as if to finalize his own downfall, he texted, "Flight landing soon. Can't wait to see you. Missed you so much." But GPS data still placed him at the hotel. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop, created a new email, typed his parents' address, and wrote a subject line that would shatter their image of their son. "About your son's business trip." Then, for the first time that weekend, I exhaled not from relief, but from resolve. I hovered over the send button for 10 long seconds before clicking. The photos, the videos, the timestamps, the PI report, they all went straight to his parents' inbox. And once it was done, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: silence. Real silence. The kind that settles into your lungs like clean, heavy air. It lasted only 30 seconds. My phone rang. It was his father. His voice didn't sound like the warm, gentle man I'd shared holiday dinners with. It was ragged, uneven, already breaking. "Natalie, is this real?" Behind him, I heard his mother's voice rise sharply, then dissolve into sobs. "Yes," I said. "Every photo is time-stamped. I hired a licensed investigator. I'm sorry." There was a long, empty pause. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. "We'll handle this. Thank you for telling us." Then he hung up. My phone vibrated again, but this time it wasn't them. It was him. 6:30 p.m. Home. Coming over. I didn't respond. 7. Nat. Why aren't you answering 7:15? Please pick up 7:30. This isn't funny. What's going on, 8? Sarah. Did I do something? Please talk to me. I watched the messages come in with an unsettling calmness. The kind of calm that happens only when something inside you has already snapped and fallen away. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was simply done. At 9:00, he must have gotten the call from his father. My phone lit up with call after call, 23 of them, in 15 minutes, all from unknown numbers. Then came the texts, frantic and panicked. "What did you send them? Why would you do that? You had me followed." "Call me now. This is insane." I blocked him. And that night I slept, deeply, peacefully, for the first time in 6 weeks. The next morning, the chaos arrived, in new form. At 7:30 a.m., someone knocked aggressively at my door. When I opened it, his best friend stood there, hair pulled back, holding a coffee as if it were both a shield and a weapon. "We need to talk," she announced, already pushing past me. I still hadn't even brushed my hair. "Good morning to you, too." She spun on me with fire in her eyes. "Do you even understand what you've done? I'm sure you're about to tell me." "His parents kicked him out," she snapped. "He's staying on my couch. He's a mess." He hasn't stopped crying. I took a slow sip of my actual coffee. He's a mess. He spent the weekend juggling 2 women in hotel rooms. They weren't like that," she stammered. "Really, because the photos show otherwise." "You don't understand, Natalie." She lifted her chin defensively. "Those women. They were helping him. Helping him with what I asked, though. I already knew the answer. With money." I blinked. "So let me get this straight. Your argument is that he wasn't cheating. He was fundraising." She flushed. "He loved you. This was just, it got complicated." Explain how making out with two women in separate hotel rooms is complicated. Go on, I'm listening. She tried again. He was trying to start a wellness coaching business. He told me everything. He works in pharmaceutical sales, I said evenly. He doesn't have a business. He was afraid to tell you because you'd judge him. I stared at her for a long moment. Nothing says business venture like kissing investors. You're twisting everything, she said, voice rising. You ruined his life. No, I corrected her. I revealed it. She glared at me. He wants his stuff. It's by the door, I said, pointing to a small box I'd packed the night before: his toothbrush, a hoodie, a charger, and some grooming products he'd left behind. That's everything. That's all she demanded. We didn't live together, I reminded her. He didn't leave much here, mostly just lies. She snatched the box like it offended her hands. You're a cold person. I'm someone who trusted evidence instead of excuses, I replied. If that makes me cold, I'm fine with it. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Later that morning, while I was at work, his email slid into my inbox, a long, rambling essay of blame, guilt, self-pity, and emotional manipulation. I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But sending those photos to my parents, that was cruel. They're not speaking to me. My dad called me a failure. My mom won't stop crying. My whole family knows now. And for what? Because I was trying to secure funding for our future. Those women meant nothing. You were the one I loved. If you had been patient, if you had talked to me first, we could have fixed this. I typed one sentence in return. Pop quiz. Do you trust me when I say I don't care completely? Then I blocked that email too. The following afternoon, his mother called from a blocked number. At first, I didn't answer, assuming it was him, but something made me pick up. Her voice came through soft, strained trembling. Sweetheart. My heart twisted. Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to apologize, she whispered. I raised him better than this. I truly thought he'd changed. She inhaled shakily. We loved you, Natalie. We thought you two would last. And now we find out he's been lying to everyone, even to us. I closed my eyes. You don't owe me an apology. I do, she insisted. You deserved honesty, and he gave you nothing but deceit. A long silence followed. When she spoke again, it was barely audible. He hurt all of us. After we hung up, the heaviness in my chest wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was empathy. For her, for his family, for every person he had manipulated. By Wednesday, a letter arrived from a lawyer accusing me of violating his privacy and demanding $15,000. I forwarded it to my attorney friend, who called me laughing. This is garbage, he said. A bluff. You're fine. If he tries to file anything, we'll make him regret it. I believed him. On Thursday, the fallout widened. A text appeared on my phone from a number I didn't recognize. It was the older woman, the elegant one. He told me you two broke up months ago. He said you were stalking him and trying to destroy his business. If either of you contacts me again, I'll involve the police. I forwarded her message to Detective D, who contacted the woman directly. Less than an hour later, the woman texted again, this time shaken, almost panicked. I need the PI report, please. I sent her everything relevant. She called me immediately afterward, voice brittle. I gave him $30,000, she whispered. For a business plan, he stole off a wellness website. Her breathing hitched. I thought he loved me. I had no words, because suddenly, painfully, it became clear. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a pattern, a strategy, a long-running con, and it had only just begun to collapse. The days that followed felt strangely weightless, as if I were walking through the aftermath of a storm that had uprooted everything except me. I wasn't shattered or spiraling. I wasn't replaying memories or questioning my worth. Instead, I felt a steady, measured detachment, like someone who had finally stepped out of a burning building and was watching the flames from the sidewalk. By the start of the second week, the consequences he'd spent years outrunning caught up with him all at once. The elegant older woman, the one who had been funding him without realizing she was being used, filed a civil suit. Not a threat, not a warning, a real formal fraud case. She had forwarded the PI documentation to her lawyer, who easily discovered that the business plan he'd pitched wasn't just poorly constructed, it was plagiarized verbatim from a legitimate wellness coaching website. He hadn't even bothered to change the formatting. He just pasted his name on top and rehearsed a script charming enough to convince her. The younger woman, the affectionate one, reacted differently. She blocked him everywhere, disappeared completely, and according to Detective D, refused to discuss him at all. She didn't want explanations. She didn't want justice. She wanted distance. I couldn't blame her. His situation at home deteriorated just as quickly. His parents, stunned by what they'd uncovered, dug deeper into his personal finances. They found secret credit cards, thousands of dollars in transactions with women they'd never heard of, unexplained cash deposits and loan requests disguised as business expenses. They found dating app receipts. They found messages. They found everything he'd assumed he had hidden. His mother called me again just once more, her voice gentler this time. "He's been lying to us for years," she said softly. "We didn't see it. We didn't want to see it. We thought love could fix everything, but he doesn't just make mistakes. He manipulates." There was sadness in her words, but also resignation, and something else, relief. For the first time, she saw the truth. He lost his job soon after. Officially, it was performance concerns, but everyone knew the truth. Pharmaceutical sales didn't want a liability, and the lawsuit alone was enough to make him a risk. Word travels fast in industries that depend on trust. His friends began disappearing one by one. People don't stay loyal when the lies begin touching their lives too. A few of them sent me quiet, apologetic messages, just variations of, "I didn't know, and I'm sorry I doubted you." I didn't respond. Some bridges aren't worth repairing. His parents made their final move at the end of that second week. They asked him to leave the state. Not temporarily, not as a break, as a necessity. Fresh start, they called it, but we all knew it was exile. His father arranged for him to stay with an aunt nearly 2,000 miles away, far from the lawsuit, far from the women, far from the mess, and far from me. In the middle of all this collapse, he made one last attempt to rewrite the narrative. Not through texts, those were blocked. Not through calls, security stopped those at the building door. Instead, he sent me a physical letter. 6 handwritten pages. I stood at my kitchen counter, the envelope still warm from the sun, before deciding to read it. Not because I wanted closure, I already had that, but because people who manipulate usually reveal the most when they think they're being vulnerable. The letter began with apologies. Flowery, overwritten apologies that sounded like a bad script from a drama series. "I never meant to hurt you. Everything spiraled beyond my control. I only wanted to build a future for us." Then came excuses. Those women were helping me. I only acted affectionate because they expected it for the money. I felt trapped. I couldn't tell you because you'd judge me. Then came the twist I'd been expecting, the blame. "You don't understand the pressure you put on me. You always wanted me to dress nice, look good, go to fancy places. I did all of this because of the lifestyle you expected me to maintain." I stared at the page in disbelief. He was rewriting the script entirely. According to him, he hadn't scammed multiple women. He'd simply been a victim of my expectations. The next paragraph made it worse. "If you had been more understanding of my financial struggles, I wouldn't have needed to seek help elsewhere." I set the letter down, stunned not by the words, but by their predictability. His refusal to take responsibility was so complete, so absolute, it bordered on performance art. He wrote about pursuing legal action. His lawyer had already dropped him. He wrote about how everyone believed he was the victim. They didn't. He wrote that he loved me more than anyone ever had. Untrue, obviously. And finally he ended with, "Someday you'll realize what you lost." I took a photo of the letter and sent it to his best friend, the one who had initially defended him until the truth became unavoidable. She replied within seconds, still playing the victim. "I see. Keep that letter. If he pulls anything else, it's evidence." I filed it away not because I needed it, but because it felt symbolic, like storing the last tangible piece of a story that no longer belonged to my life. By the end of week 3, everything had settled into place. His family had helped him pack. The lawsuit was moving forward. His job was gone. His apartment was being sublet. And he had finally stopped trying to reach me, not out of acceptance, but because he had no more access left to try. I looked around my quiet apartment that Sunday evening and realized the air felt different, lighter, cleaner, almost warm. I didn't miss him. I didn't mourn the loss of the relationship. I didn't feel broken. I felt free. The collapse of his world had been loud, messy, far-reaching, but my own world, mine, had never felt more intact. 3 weeks after I sent the photos to his parents, the dust finally settled. Not neatly. Nothing about this story had neat edges, but in a way that made everything clear. The consequences he'd been outrunning for years had finally gathered and closed in around him piece by piece, until the life he'd constructed from charm and manipulation collapsed into something small and quiet and far away from mine. His family followed through on what they'd told me. They put him on a plane to live with his aunt across the country. I heard from his mother indirectly through a mutual acquaintance that he'd been told not to come back until he sorted himself out. It wasn't punishment, it was containment. They couldn't continue cleaning up after him. They couldn't keep enabling the version of him they'd tried so hard to believe existed. They loved him, but love without boundaries turns into something dangerous. The lawsuit from the older woman moved forward faster than I expected. She had a strong case documented lies, financial deception, a plagiarized business plan, and a cavalier pattern of misrepresentation. Her attorney subpoenaed the PI's full report. I complied. It felt surreal forwarding evidence of a life I once believed in, now reduced to exhibits in a fraud claim. The pharmaceutical company he'd worked for officially terminated him. Performance issues, they said publicly. Privately, they didn't want the liability. No corporation wants to be associated with someone who treats networking like a romantic Ponzi scheme. His friends stepped back, some out of discomfort, some out of embarrassment, some because they finally realized they'd been lied to as well. The few who reached out to me did so quietly, apologetically, almost cautiously. But I didn't answer. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their sympathy. I didn't need anything from people who watched the signs and said nothing. As for me, my life became strangely peaceful. No more checking my phone with dread. No more overthinking every late-night text or odd comment. No more negotiating with myself about whether I was imagining things. No more hollow reassurances that felt like they evaporated the moment he spoke them. I found myself cooking dinner with music on dancing barefoot in my kitchen, without distraction. I caught up on projects I'd been too exhausted to start. I took long walks without rehearsing conversations in my head. I slept through the night. I laughed more easily. The absence of chaos felt like a gift I didn't even know I'd been missing. Sometimes people ask whether I regret sending the photos to his parents. They say I could have confronted him privately, spared his family the embarrassment, minimized the fallout. But regret, no. What I did wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. His parents deserved to know their son wasn't who he pretended to be. They deserved to know the man they were emotionally and sometimes financially supporting was living a double life that hurt everyone who crossed his path. And honestly, if I hadn't sent the proof, he would have rewritten the story before I could blink. He was always good at rewriting stories. The irony is that he never apologized in any real way. Not once. Not sincerely. Not without a but waiting at the end of every sentence. His messages were filled with accusations, manipulations, excuses, and creative blame shifting. He apologized only for the consequences, not for the choices. And a person who won't take responsibility for the harm they caused will cause it again. Not maybe, not possibly, always. That's why I didn't respond. That's why I didn't look back. The final attempt he made to contact me wasn't through a letter or a call. It was silence. A void where there used to be noise. He didn't text me on my birthday last week. For the past 2 years, even when he was lying, scheming, juggling, and betraying, he never missed it. But this year, there was nothing. Strangely, it was the best birthday gift he could have given me. Because that silence meant something I had been hoping for without saying aloud. He no longer had access to me. Not to my time, not to my emotions, not to my hopes, not to any version of my life he once felt entitled to shape. The truth is, I didn't lose anything when I lost him. He lost someone who loved honestly. He lost someone who trusted deeply. He lost someone who believed in him even when she shouldn't have. He lost the one person who might have helped him face the parts of himself he always ran from. I simply gained clarity. I gained my peace, I gained my freedom, I gained myself back. And now when people ask if I'm scared to trust again, I tell them this: I'm not afraid of trust. I'm afraid of ignoring my instincts. Trust is earned through consistent behavior, not demanded with a text message disguised as a pop quiz. Trust is shown, not claimed. Trust requires honesty, not choreography. He taught me that, or rather losing him did. So now when I look at the last 3 months of my life, the lies, the unraveling, the confrontation, the fallout,